Every single day, people take unwanted or unused items to thrift and antique stores across the country. But as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and we're here to prove it. Identify valuable things before you throw them away. Join us as we show and tell of treasures found and sold by a full-time reseller with the hopes of helping you find some treasures of your own. Welcome to the What's Sold podcast.
Welcome back to the What's Sold podcast. Truly a place where all your dreams come true. When you're out there and you're listening,
I know mine are. I know all my dreams are coming true on here.
When you're in your VW Bug and you're tooling around, going to estate sales and yard sales and thrift stores, this is just a little piece of podcast gold for you. It fuels you. It fuels your soul, so that when you walk in with confidence. You remember that this is going to age me a little bit, but do you remember that Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live?
Oh, yeah.
Where he would stare into the mirror and say, you're
good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you.
Yeah, we're the Stuart Smalley of the reselling world. I'm really beginning to believe that.
I appreciate that. That's sweet. That would be a funny intro to a video, is this like just ripping that off, but it being Rusty doing that into a mirror. Like that's his prep work before he leaves to go out. Oh, that's brilliant, man.
That is brilliant. I'm good enough, smart enough, people love me.
That's an actor. He's in politics now, right? Or he was at one point.
Yeah,
the actor who
until he got booted out of the Senate.
I can't remember.
Franken.
Al Franken. Yep, Al Franken. Yep.
Al Franken. So we are, when you're out there listening to the dulcet tones of Brandon and Matt, just remember that we are just a little piece of encouragement to you in your daily travails as you battle. A bright spot, if you will. Yeah.
If I had a VW bug that I drove around picking up stuff in it would need to be like a bright orange or a lime green or something, a statement color, so that when people saw you, there was no, I wonder if, Matt's coming to this day. They see you coming from and that could be a good or bad. It's either like, cool, or it's like this guy again.
I feel like you should be driving it. It's not going to be VW Bug. It's going to be a VW van, painted bright green, and on the side it's going to have like clown balloons, but it's going to say the reseller on both sides, and then the back will be covered with stickers from all over that you found.
Friends of mine have told me things like Rusty, his spirit animal would be like a kind of a rough old Thunderbird with like the bird on the it's like rusted sides, but he's so proud of that thing. Yeah, he got it he got a deal, and he doesn't know how to shift it correctly. So every time you're driving by, people are like, "God, does that guy know what he's doing?" And he's just trying to cram stuff in the trunk, like doesn't fit anymore. He has to use bungee cords to hold it down because it's too much in there. It's falling out on the road.
I was behind a guy the other day, and he was an older fella, and probably his son. And they were in an old pickup truck that had seen better days. It did not have a hood anymore. Okay. So you're just looking at the engine. And in the back was just filled with junk. I mean, like overflowing. Like I was thinking to myself, I don't want to go behind him. Yeah. Because something's inevitable, like a freezer
bounce up
or
and crack
a
your windshield.
Ball. Yeah. So it's going to kill me. It's going to be like a spear. It's going to fly right through my windshield and impale me off the back of this truck.
Sorry for the children, the imagery out there for the young
please,
prospective resellers.
Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes that this is an adults-only episode.
There you go.
As Brandon has been impaled by the junk man. But I did think that, wow, I always think about now you and your world, and that is the strata of people in the reselling world is truly fascinating.
So Cake, the band Cake, they had that first album came out when I was in high school, and there's a song on there. The lyrics go something like, there's a man, sitting collecting stamps in a room filled with Chinese lamps, and it makes me think of like Rusty. Everyone's asleep, but at 1 a.m, he's down in this cluttered room. It's dimly lit by 100-year-old lamps that he's rewired, and he's like feverishly searching his 20-year-old stamp books to see, what value this has. I don't do that, by the way, but we can imagine that Rusty would do that for sure.
Well, no, for sure Rusty would do that, but he would have to do it in between tending to his still. I gotta believe in my heart.
Well, I do
Rusty,
live by a little creek down here, and we live in the Appalachian Mountains. There's a, I don't know if it's still open. Navitat, is that still open? The big high ropes area where you can go and pay.
No idea.
Okay, so it's out here. It's kind of north of Asheville, maybe out towards Weaverville, that area. But when you're out there, they say that even still, last time I was there, the little creeks and streams and stuff that run through this large property out in the wilderness, they found multiple stills that people had gone way out in the woods and created, and they've got all like holes in them because of the what do they call them? Like the revenuers, or they would come and
ATF.
the ATF, the ATF of the day.
Man.
They would come and they would bust them up. They would just pop holes in them.
Right.
Like, here's your copper. Yeah, you shouldn't have been doing this. They arrest you, or if they just discover it and you're not around, they're going to destroy it so it can't be used again. That can legitimately be found all over Western North Carolina, probably in Kentucky, Tennessee.
Oh yeah, I guarantee you in Kentucky.
Yeah. It's an interesting piece of history during Prohibition. People were like, well, it's not that I'm not going to drink anymore. It just means I'm going to have to do a little work now. I don't just jump on the horse and go down. I gotta read some books. I gotta figure out how to do this.
Isn't that what LaGuardia did, the mayor of New York, where he went on camera during Prohibition and he created beer? He showed people how to make beer from stuff you could get at the grocery store.
That's hilarious. I don't know about that, but that's
he
cool.
did it to show that the ludicrous nature of Prohibition.
It's kind of like that. This is terribly illegal. So just so you know what not to do, you certainly don't start with this, and you don't put these together. You don't wait this long.
No, you
Please
did
don't
the
do
exact
that.
opposite.
Oh, okay.
He said this is completely illegal. You could put this together and make beer. Like there was no law against it.
But he's essentially teaching people how to do it under the guise of, I'm educating you on what not to do, but you're going to do what you do. Yeah.
Well, bathtub gin and all that stuff. Yeah, we all know that Prohibition did not end well. It's very tough to prohibit.
I think that there were more.
I
read that there were more entities creating alcohol by far during Prohibition than prior to it. It was because it was like the forbidden thing now, and people were like, "You don't tell me what to do. I didn't care about making it before. Now I'm going to make it and sell it out of my basement."
Well, right, and that's why Bottled and Bond, which is
bonded warehouses, the government. Yeah.
Yep. So that they knew that it was actually made with it didn't have like poisons in it.
Well, they took care of the first line of alcohol. What is it? The heads, the hearts, and the tails. I think it's the heads you get rid of.
And
the hearts are the best, and the tails.
Yep.
But otherwise, it causes your optical nerve to detach from your retina, and that is what caused the blindness. When they talked about moonshine, like, you'll go blind.
Right.
You legitimately could go blind if you didn't know that there's certain alcohols that will be poisonous
or
to
it could kill you. There's all sorts of terrible things that happen because of it. There was a book about a circus, and I can't remember now, but there was a guy in the thing that drank some bad alcohol and died from it. Anyway.
Man, well, this certainly is not an episode for the children. This is definitely the most adult episode we've done so far.
We talk about 2 deaths in here, Matt. It's okay. 3 is when you don't want the kids in the room. When you get to the 3rd death, right. You don't want to. By the way, this is absolutely nothing to do with the What's Old podcast, but
bring it.
I just love it so much that I want to share it with people that are out there. If you are looking for a story podcast that is about Appalachia and is done in an incredible production way, it is called The Old Gods of Appalachia. It's almost like a drama show, like the old-time radio shows they would do. And it's this guy, he's got the most incredible voice, and they tell stories.
Produced by you, right? This is like a selfless
plug.
plug.
I wish it was produced by me. It's produced by a group called Nerd Media. I think they're actually out of England. But they produce this, and it's a guy, I think he's local to the area somewhere. I don't even know. That could be an apocryphal story. I don't know. But it is 5 seasons. If you're just driving around as a reseller and you want to find a show that sort of sums up Appalachia, it's a gothic horror show. So just be aware. Again, this is an adult show today.
Earmuffs, children. Earmuffs, kids, on this part.
I highly recommend it. Anyway, that's nothing to do with what we're talking about
Very
today.
cool.
But I am obsessed with this podcast.
I'll have to check it out.
All right, Matt. That one person, grumpy seller 433, who says, "What do you get to the thing?" That's the part in the show where you could just skip ahead. But
yeah, guys, in case you didn't know, just skip all of that. You can start right now.
Right. So, Matt, you went out. This has been another one of those crazy weeks. I won't get too far into the weeds or show you guys how the sausage is made, but Matt he's like lightning in a bottle. You got to be aware when you work with Matt that it could he might be like, "Hey, Brandon, I got to go. I got to dig up a cellar somebody called me. They got a root cellar. And
You
they
could
got
be
some stuff in there.
mesmerized, or you could end up in a hospital. It's a roll of the dice.
It's a roll of the dice. And he'll be like, I can't record right now because I've got to go. Somebody said they found an old World War II nuclear bunker, and there's stuff in there.
They've asked me to go decommission an old World War II bomb that they found. We got to dig a trench around it, and we're going
to see if we can sell it on eBay.
That's right.
So you went today to another in a estate sale?
Yeah, I did. First of all, it's a beautiful day. It's like 72, and it's like
it's
perfect,
gorgeous.
Absolute perfect weather today. I went to an estate sale this morning at 10 o'clock. It's the same one that you and I went to, if you recall. So, and I work with that gentleman now, a very nice guy. But as you recall, when we were at the last one, it was quite cold, and we got there. I got there pretty early. You came a little after me, but we were there. We stood in line for a while. Quite a few people, am I right? And we were just on one side. You can line up in the front and the back. I got there at about 9:20, so only 40 minutes ahead of time. First one in line on such a gorgeous day. Now, it has everything to do with the types of items that were there. The time we went, there was a ton of jewelry, a ton of watches, a bunch of collectible things, and the people came out for that. Today, arguably not as valuable things, maybe things that aren't as interesting to people. Also, as we've alluded to, my experience lately has been, there's been a bit of a shift in sales. Sales have been a little bit lower. I don't think that it's a coincidence that there's been some turbulence with the economy. There's been some fear and some rhetoric, and who knows what to believe. And people are left with, well, just in case it gets bad, maybe I need to not be buying some extra things right now. Maybe whatever. And so I think that's part of it. There are people also who are in the business who are one of the changes they're making is I just need to not spend as much, which I haven't been doing either, but it's more because I've shifted and I'm selling more for other people. And so the product is coming to me now. I don't have to spend money. But all that to say, I was in line. Awesome. Chatted a little bit. And I even brought a little tub with me, like a little plastic tub, because I knew that there were a few things that there were various ones, and it would be too hard for me to just kind of collect them with my hands, so I brought a tub. Nice. So he opens the door. I go in. First thing I go to is a couple of these little old, I say they're old. They're actually either reproductions or they're newer ones made to look old that either are mirroring old ones or not, but like oil and gas signs or like old marketing advertising type signs. And it's just like my dad likes that. Like it's probably one of those is going to go to him for Father's Day or something, And then there's a table full of gun holsters in their unused and their original packaging. There were probably around 35 to 40 of them, and 95+% of them were leather, like stitched leather. Nice things. And prior to going, I didn't exactly know the brands and things, but I just wanted to see, okay, I've not really researched gun holsters because I'm not a gun aficionado or anything. And so I got on eBay, and lo and behold, would you venture to guess the holster for which type of gun on eBay? I know that's a very specific question, but would you guess what are the most valuable, highest priced, the highest purchase price holster? What type of gun does it hold?
A Glock.
You would it's not. So the hint would be it's a vintage. It would be an older
Colt. The Colt 6-shooter. The old classic Colt.
1911 Colt 1911 holsters.
I have a 1911.
$100, $200, $300
really?
for just a holster that holds it.
So for the audience, it's not a gun aficionado. A 1911 is if you can imagine, maybe you saw a World War II movie or something. The lieutenant would have a sidearm. He would have a pistol, and it's a 45. It's called a 1911. It's a type of that. They
That's
made
the caliber.
a Springfield 1911.
Caliber. Yep.
Right. The 1911 is a very specific type of. I actually own one. I got it years ago because I just thought it looked so cool.
It is a very iconic looking.
Yes.
Weapon, and kind of along with that, other Colt like single action army pistols, revolver pistols, which are also highly collectible. And then there are some others that are specialized, Beretta or, this and that, and then getting into newer ones. But because, a lot of these pistols you mentioned, like a Glock, that's one of the highest selling brands of pistol today. And there are tons of types of holsters and holders for this. But for an older, like a 80, 100-year-old pistol, they're not really making a ton of leather holsters for those things today. Right. And if they are, you're gonna pay up for them because there aren't as many of them. All that to say, I walk in And I just cleared that table. They were $10 a piece. This is what they wanted for them. $10 a piece, brand new in the packaging. I bought 32 of them. So I spent $320 on 32 holders. But most of them are leather, and we're talking bottom dollar, $30 to $40 for these is what they'll sell for. Possibly in the hundreds on some of them. So I expect for that $320 purchase, I'm probably going to make $600 to $800, possibly more, in profit off of those. And listen, if I went today to a pawn shop, if I went today to a pawn shop, I could sell these there and make the money immediately if I wanted to. I wouldn't make as much, but I mean, we're in North Carolina. People who don't know this, recently legislation was passed. Now you can open carry without a permit weapons in the state of North Carolina. So a person could come to me, or go to a pawn shop right now that sells weapons, buy a holster. They could buy a weapon. They could stick that in their holster and walk out with it, walk out to their car and drive home with that exposed. So, this is not a show about like opinions about whether or not that's good or bad or any of that. It's a fact. You can do that.
I like to see myself. I would like to, if I was ever going to wear a gun with a holster again, I would do it like I'd go full cowboy. I would wear like chaps.
One on either side. You would also have on one side.
Reverse. No, they have to be reversed. So you have to reach across to pull them like the old westerns.
Fair enough.
That's how I would do it.
So I would do it that way, but I'd also have. Do you remember what was the movie Snake Eyes with Nicolas Cage? Okay, he had these two gold-plated guns that he had side by side in the back. I'd have those as well. On one ankle, I'd have one, and then I'd have like a gaucho knife in my boot on the other one.
Of course,
I'd be armed to the teeth.
Yeah, you can't be prepared enough. So again, I guess this is a show about nothing, but there is this thing out there called a cowboy competition. Have you ever heard of this before?
You're not talking about like rodeos and things where they ride around and rope cattle, things like that. They
shoot. It's a cowboy shooting competition. They shoot.
Like at targets?
They shoot targets. They shoot these metal targets.
Wow.
They dress up in full cowboy gear. Like it's part of the deal. You have to wear like a 10-gallon hat and a white shirt, and there's a whole uniform for it.
Yeah.
And you shoot 3 types of guns, and so like you shoot 2 Colt action pistols, 12 bullets, so there's 6 in each.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to be. They can be made newer guns, but they have to be made the exact same way as the Colt. Exactly. So they're shooting that old school Colt pistol. Then they shoot a side-by-side shotgun, which is instead of a double shotgun, which is the barrels underneath, it's side-to-side.
It's a side.
You probably see
those are more
right?
valuable, in case you're wondering, collectors. Side-by-sides that are etched and older ones sell for multiples of thousands of dollars.
So you got to shoot those twice, so 4 shots. And then they shoot a carbine, like the old classic lever-action carbine rifle.
Okay.
And I don't know how many bullets come out of that.
Like a Henry rifle type of it.
Yeah, like a Henry rifle, exactly. Mm-hmm. And so they have these competitions where they'll go boom, 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 and then they shoot. And the guys are so good, they shoot the side-by-side at the target, and then they pop the... Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the cartridge out basically, and then they just shove 2 more in and shoot them again, and then they shoot the Henry rifle. Guess what the world record is for that, Matt? And and by the way, if you miss a target, you lose points. You lose time off your thing. 39 seconds is the world record.
Wow.
Think about that. Think about just shooting targets with these things. I just my mind is blown. I know that's nothing to do with reselling.
Well, what do they call that Olympic sport where they run or they do like a cross country thing and then they have to get down and shoot at targets periodically? They hold a gun.
The
some sort of marksman. Yeah, it's really interesting. Oh, by the way, everyone, it sounds like I know about guns. Not only is this the 100% of what I know about fire, I've overextended myself. It sounds like I know more than I do. 90% of this I learned this morning before I went to this estate sale. But all that to say, it was really cool. I got all these. I haven't sold them yet, but I'm excited. I will give updates on that. And then I went and got various other things. A box of old comic books. I got some pocket knives. I bought a Carson City Morgan dollar from 1878, I think.
Carson City, Nevada?
Yeah, so for Morgan dollars, silver dollars, made in even early 1900s, there were different mints. There's like Philadelphia, the O, I think it's maybe San Francisco, there's a D or whatever. But the CC, if you get a Carson City one, it's a mint that fewer were minted there than any other mint, and the mint was not active as long as the others. And so Carson City Morgan dollars tend to almost always sell for higher values on average than ones minted in any other place. Just in case you're wondering, if you ever go to a pawn shop and you see a bunch of Morgan dollars, look on the back of them above the eagle, or actually it's below the eagle. It's well, that's what they call it. It's got a specific look. In fact, I may even show the one I bought here if I can grab it in a second.
I can always throw a picture up in the show too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
They that's what they call them. Anyways, they're very collectible as a silver dollar. So I got that, a couple other things. I was happy about it, but I was a little behind the curtain here. I was a little late getting on today because I was in it. I mean, I was sorting that stuff. I was not thinking about time. I get a text from Brandon like, "Hey, should we just shut this down, or are you going to fully commit ever?" Sorry about that.
I did not say that. I just said, "Are you joining?" That's all I said.
He did. He's kind. That's true. I paint you with darker shades.
I am the taskmaster on the show. I got to get things done.
That's right.
We got things to do. We got people to please. Hey, listen, we can't be that ray of sunshine for that seller that's driving around in their VW Bug if you don't get on and be be with us, Matt. That's the bottom line.
That is true. That is true. So, what do we want to touch on? Do we want to talk about a subject? Do we want to talk about things I sold first? How do we want to?
Well, let's do the subject. Let's do the subject first because we're going to kind of finish the third, maybe the fourth.
Installment.
We don't know yet.
I think this is the third installment. We've done kitchen.
This is the third installment for sure. We might go. Yeah, we got kitchen, garage,
and now garage, and now because of something you said at a previous episode about junk drawer, it made me think. Well, that's not exactly a room, but that is a thing that most people know about. Yeah, I got a junk drawer. Everyone's got a junk drawer.
Yeah, my wife calls it the miscellaneous drawer, but my daughter and I refuse to bow to her evil plans, and we call it the junk drawer. She gets mad every time. It's not a junk drawer. Like, it's filled with junk, therefore it's a junk drawer. But go ahead.
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of times, I would say that more often than not, the junk drawer is in either the kitchen or in a hallway. Would you agree with that?
Yes. With my experience, it's always the kitchen. But
it could
be in the hallway somewhere.
Hey, listen, ours is in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, that's ours.
Wait, you have one too, Matt?
I do. And yeah, I mean, it is, I would say it's junk, but my wife's when the Marie Kondo stuff came out and it was like all the decluttering and organizing and stuff. Oh man, that was speaking her language so hard. She's been that kind of person for a long time. And so she's good about keeping that stuff pretty organized. I would say it's only 10% junk. The rest of it is intentionally in there for easy access. A screwdriver. I don't want to have to walk downstairs and go to the garage to find a screwdriver. Just keep one of a standard size, one of a smaller one there. You can just grab it when you need it. So it's more of I think you mentioned this before, like a utility. It's like a utility drawer. But we're going to talk about things in that space. And listener, if you're at home, maybe you're on the car, but if you're at home, just take a little walk over the junk drawer, open that puppy up, and just view what's before you, and maybe some of this will fit. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each one because I want to actually give you several ideas. One thing that I think is common in junk drawers would be pens, ink pens, writing instruments, pencils, pens. So you should know that certain types of mechanical pencils, vintage ones that usually you turn them to make the lead come out versus clicking them at the end. It seems like that was an earlier iteration of that, technology. Sometimes those can be made out of sterling silver or can be silver plated. People will buy just the filler, just the lead themselves, because you can get different sizes and hardnesses of lead, but nobody wants to go out to a store to buy pencil lead. But you can find whole lots of those on eBay selling all the time. And some very specific brands or specific sizes can sell for quite a bit because a person's needing that specific size for their whatever they're using, their pencil. Maybe it's made for art purposes, or maybe it's just for regular writing. But if you have some of that loose laying around there, sometimes people will grab those, they're cleaning it out, and they're like, oh, I don't ever use mechanical pencils anymore. You just grab some of that. Oh, this isn't even, like, it's half full. No one's going to want this. You pitch it. I don't pitch that. I mean, that has some value. It may or may not be worth your time, depending on what you think you can earn, but do some research. Look that up. So pencils and pencil leads. Also, things like, certain types of ink pens, particularly older ones that still work, if they have some cool advertising on them. Like I came across one the other day that is an older Wells Fargo bank pen, but the back part of it actually has like a clear window. It has liquid inside of it, and the background, it's like a scene of like a country western with the Wells Fargo old buggy with a person riding a horse. And if you turn it to one side, it slides down towards one direction. If you turn it back, it goes back the other way. It's just a cool thing.
Oh, that's
They didn't
awesome.
make a lot of those, but those things are selling for like $20, $30 or more. That kind of thing. So if you have, sometimes there's ink pens that used to, I don't know if you've ever seen ink pens where you'd click them and they again have a window and it has like a calendar on it. So some of those might have a calendar for a particular year or a particular month. People will sometimes collect ones for different years, or maybe they want, different colors. But then advertising from old oil and gas places, old gas stations. I mean, at one time, this was very common on matchbooks and on ink pens. Writing instruments was one primary way of advertising your business. If you had a restaurant, if you had a gas station, if you were an automotive repair place, you had these pens and these matchbooks branded on one side with your stuff, and that was for you to take, that you were encouraged to take them because they want you at home writing and looking at your pen. Oh, yeah, it's time to get that oil change again over at Jeb's, oil and lube or whatever they call it.
Yeah,
so
Jeb's.
Jeb's. So Crazy Jeb, That's the kind of thing that can have value. Those are collectible things. And then the last thing I'll say is fountain pens. This might be the most valuable potentially of all of them. Now, fountain pens tend to, if they're left for a long time and not used or opened up, that ink inside can dry. They can start to rust. It can be kind of hard. Some of those components may not work real well. But if you have ones in good condition, or particularly sought after brands, like there's Parker's and there's Schaefer and there's Mont Blanc. I mean, those are really high end, but maybe it was a gift you got from, maybe your grandparents got that for you when you graduated high school, and it was like too valuable to throw away, but you don't really use fountain pens. Well, it's still there. That's like a $400 or $500 ink pen, people. You didn't know that. So the other thing about these ink pens, and by the way, they can have value whether they're functional or not, because people have fun as a hobby getting those, restoring them, getting new ink fillers, and bringing them back to life. But a lot of times, though, the tips on those fountain pens can be made out of solid gold, 14 karat gold, 18 karat gold, and they'll say it on there. Now, if you pull it off and there's ink on it, you might have to wash that ink off to see, but it might be solid gold. That gold by itself might weigh a gram. You know that 14 karat gold is $64 a gram today. So just the gold on that could be worth $64. Don't pitch that thing just because it doesn't work. Okay, so ink pens, writing instruments. Another thing common is scissors. You got scissors in your junk drawer?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Several. So different types of scissors, again, usually older kinds with certain brands. A lot of times old German brands like Klaus. There's a brand called Wiss, W-I-S-S, that made various types, and even smaller scissors that were made for sewing. I've bought and sold many of those tiny pairs. If you've ever seen them, they look like a bird, almost like a crane. So it's like the legs come down to the finger holes, and as it goes up, it's shaped like the head of a bird, and then the scissor part, the cutters, looks like the beak of a bird. And they're cool. Sometimes those can be made out of sterling silver or even gold, but just basic ones can sell for $20 or $30. Sometimes you can go to a thrift store. I know this is out of the house, but you can find a little sewing basket that has just some thread and some stuff, and you think, oh, that's not valuable. But it could have some silver or gold thimbles in that, and oftentimes we'll have a pair of sewing scissors. You could pay $5 for that and sell just the scissors out of there for $20 or $30. I've done it dozens of times. Yes. And you don't even have to sell the thread. You can if you want, but maybe the thread and stuff's not valuable, but you're really getting it for the thing, the item in there that you know will sell. So scissors, if they're good condition, large ones, there are different types. There are scissors that are for cutting different designs in fabric as you cut it. There are ones that are really big. There are even shears that were made for actually cutting like wool, things off of animals.
Or
leather, exactly. So there's different types. Some can be really ornately etched. Maybe they have enamel paint on them. All of these features can be something that a buyer's looking for. So look for scissors. So we got ink pens, pencils, scissors, staplers. That's another thing that maybe not so many people use today as in yesteryear, but there are still little handheld staplers that can have big value. Certain brands and certain models, because a company might put out several different types of products, different sizes, different shapes, different colors. There's people who collect those, and even people who buy the older ones just because they know. Look at that right there. What do you got? You got a swing line?
This stapler could be used as a bludgeon. It is so heavy.
Yeah.
It is made out of this.
Going back to the weapons conversation, you don't need a gun. Just carry an old stapler around with you.
This stapler came out of my dad's office from like probably got this in the 1950s.
Man.
It still works. I keep it. It's my favorite. I'll never get rid of it. They'll take it out, but I use it as when I was a teacher.
Yes.
It used to have the little black plastic.
It makes me think of what
there.
teachers. I was just thinking about, like, my third grade art teacher. I mean, that was his. Yeah. That's his stapler.
Oh, that's a great. And you know what? This definitely could be in the junk drawer, but they truly don't make these like this anymore.
No, that's heavy duty. That's not going to bind up on you like the newer ones that are made of plastic and stuff. You break it and you just pitch it. They made things to last back then. I'm going to hold one up right here that I have on my desk.
Oh.
And this is a brand called Bates. And it says Bates on it, and it says 88p. That's perfect, because I can get on eBay and look up Bates 88p stapler, and I'm going to see maybe $14, $20. Shoot, wouldn't you rather have $20 in your pocket rather than just pitch this in the trash? Because you don't use it, or donate it, because someone is like me is going to buy it at that thrift store and laugh all the way home because we know that it can sell. So I would definitely keep an eye on that. I have a different one. I have one that's more of a rounded handheld one, but I also have a large, heavier duty one, just like yours, that I keep as well, because you never know when you need to stick something together.
Who knew that the swing lines were made in Long Island, New York?
Well,
this has got all sorts of writing. I'm going to go on and do a little experiment. I'm going to find out what would something like this go for on eBay.
Well, listen, let's do a quick thing here. I don't think it's going to mess with the recording if I do this, but I'm going to very quickly, because I'm on my computer, I'm going to bounce over. First, I'm going to look up mine. I'm going to look up Bates. Here we go, Bates 88p, and I don't even have to put in stapler. It just pops it up for me. I'm going to look at sold items here. I'm going to look at the highest. I just want to see, what's the highest one? Yeah, so the highest priced one that sold as an individual, it was only $13, but it was $6 shipping. Probably only cost $4 to ship. So, and it's useful. Yours is a swing line. Do you know what the model is? Does it say? Or size?
It says 94-02
There we go.
there.
That's all I need. 94-02. And we're gonna see what this puppy. I imagine there were a lot of this made because it's large. But yeah, here's one that's in like a burgundy color, $35. Let me find a metal one like yours, silver one. Yeah, here's one for $16. Here's ones for $24. And so some people might look at that and say, I don't staple things anymore. And besides, it's the metal is kind of, or the paint job on the top is kind of scraped off. Nobody wants that. Wrong. There's somebody who's buying that today on eBay. So definitely do some research before you pitch things.
Yeah.
And I only say that, folks, because I'm telling you every single time, without fail, every single time someone contacts me and says, hey, I heard that you do what you do. Would you be interested in selling some things for me? And when we get into the conversation, either on the phone or when I'm in front of them, and I tell them, because I just give information. I'm not trying to withhold. So if I see something I'll buy you, by the way, this can have some value. I tell them, they go, oh man, I wish I'd known that. Last month, I donated like 50 of those without fail. So many people donate things or throw them, or they'll say, oh man, I had a box full of it. I just threw it away because they didn't take the time to research it. The number one thing I tell people to orient themselves when they start thinking about doing this is do not base your idea of value of an item based on your interest in that item or what you think people might want. Because you are not a mind reader. You don't know. Do the research. Get on and look. Don't throw that thing away. I have several examples of things that I even thought was ugly. It's damaged. It's not, functioning properly. It just needs to be pitched. But then there's that nagging feeling, well, what if I'm wrong? It takes 5 seconds to check that out. Many times I have been surprised and made money because I did that. So it doesn't take long. Definitely do it. Tape measures are another thing. I'm going to hold up a big one, and a lot of times they're too big to fit in a junk drawer. Sometimes they're smaller. Here's a very big.
Oh, that's a tape dispenser.
This is a tape dispenser. Oh, I said tape measure. Yeah. Well, so I'm both. I don't know why I pulled this up. I think I was just thinking of tape.
Huge tape dispenser.
We'll do them quickly. This is a very large one. This is a brand called Abel, ABEL, number 50. And I love that because I don't have to search around. I just put in number 50, and I'm going to see what they sell for.
Right.
And this is great. I've had this on my desk for probably 4 years, And I've not even gone through a tenth of the tape on this. I don't use tape a lot, but when I do, it's right here. So for me, super functional. If I didn't have this, I might be the one online looking for it. For an old, and I would want a big old one because they last. Tape measures are another thing. Certain brands we talked about with tools last week, brands like Craftsman, like Stanley, some older, quirkier ones. Maybe it's an interesting color. Maybe, I don't know. There could be some sort of feature about it that people want, a certain model. They hold up. So tape measures can also have good values. Yeah, you can go out to any department store and buy a tape measure, but there are collectors from older ones, and maybe people just want to get on and say, maybe it's not about them getting something collectible. Maybe it's about them just getting a better deal. I don't want to go out and spend $20, $25 on a tape measure when I can buy one for $15, and it's perfectly good. So why not?
The old ones are heavier duty, so that the actual tape part that you measure with doesn't fold over. A lot of times that's the problem with the newer ones. They're made from like cheaper alloy.
Yeah.
So they bend when you're pulling. The
these
old
are like
school
old
ones,
steel, like thin steel, and they can bend. And these things survive working on the job site. Dropped 1,000 times. Yeah, they got some dents, but you know what? Just like the hand tools we talked about last week, it's going to outlive you. Someone's going to buy that when you're dead, and it's still going to have use. So there is something to be said for the quality of of some types of older things. We said hand tools. I'll say hand tools again. I don't need to get into that a lot because you can find maybe hand tools other places. But just know that things like pliers, things like screwdrivers, different types of specialty small tools that are still functional and usable have value. You can go out sometimes and buy things for $1 that are worth 20 or 30 at thrift stores. I do it all the time. But if you're only paying 50 cents or $1 for an item, you'll happily take $10 or $15. That's not a lot of money, but your return on your investment is quite large, right? So that's an easy entry point. That's the type of thing. And if you've got it at your house and you don't use it, all the better. It costs you nothing right now, so you just spend the time listing it, and you can make some money. Let's get into a couple other things real quick. Coins is another thing. Loose change. Pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters. Maybe you got some Eisenhower dollars in there. Maybe you got some Kennedy half dollars from yesteryear. Who knows? Maybe you got a $2 bill folded up in there you forgot about. You pull out the little tray and it's just been collecting dust underneath of that. There's all kinds of values in currency. And it doesn't even have to be American currency, but particularly American currency. Did you know that certain coins, nickels, dimes, quarters, if they were produced, a lot of times like 64 is the date, but a lot of them prior to the mid-60s are made of like 90% silver. They're not making quarters and dimes and nickels out of silver anymore. They're making them out of alloys. But back then, they were making them out of silver. So if you find a bunch of coins and you find a bunch of old ones, it could have value because maybe it's made with precious metals. Also, there is an avid collector base for coins that are good condition, coins that have errors. Get out a loop, like a jeweler's loop, a little magnifying glass, and look. If it looks like there's an odd thing about that, maybe there was a misstamp, maybe something's overlapping, maybe the date is kind of melded to the edge, and it shouldn't be like that. Maybe the mint mark, it's a D for Denver, but instead of it being a full D, it just looks like a lump of metal. And it was filled in, not supposed to be filled in. That's an error. People will pay ridiculous amounts of money for some of these coins. And I'm not saying that you're gonna find $1,000 coin in your junk drawer, but you might find a dime that's worth $2. And that doesn't sound like a lot, right? But if you found a lot of loose change, if you get a quarter, and I don't know what they are, but some of these Kennedy half dollars, some of these, they have like $17, $18 just in scrap silver content. So people might buy them at a deal just to scrap them, have them melted down. But sometimes people buy them if they're in good condition, and they send them off to be graded, because once it's graded at a high grade, they can then turn around and sell it for a lot more. And maybe that's your route. Maybe you don't sell it right away. Maybe you look up the values and you say, I have this is a good quality coin. Maybe this would qualify for me to spend a couple extra bucks to get it graded, because the difference between the same quality coin, one that is not graded and loose versus one that is graded, dramatic differences in prices. And collectors would prefer to get ones either that are already slabbed, that's what they call it, slabbed, already graded, or buy something really cheap in condition, and then they'll spend the money. So look for coins. Pocket knives is another fun one. Pocket knives that have been in there. You can find old pocket knives in old fishing, like tackle boxes. find those all the time. You can find them in your junk drawer. They're all over the place. Out in your garage, on your workbench. I've gone to all kinds of estate sales where they let you in the garage, and there's just random pocket knives laying around. Certain brands, older ones, I would look especially ones that have bone or antler as a part of the handle. So these are usually pocket knives that have 2 blades, 2 to 4 blades, sometimes maybe just one. But Case is kind of an obvious, it's the most collected brand today, CASE, Case knives. They still make them, but there are a lot of really awesome older brands like Cattaraugus, and some of these that can bring multiples of hundreds of dollars for a little pocket knife. And why? Well, because it was made you didn't know this, but it was made in the late 1800s by a well-respected, well-collected brand. If you don't know what it is, what brand it is, that's okay. Most of the higher-end and older branded knives, if you open up the blade, typically on the largest blade, but sometimes on others, at the hilt, right where it's closest to the handle, right at the very bottom of the blade, it usually has the manufacturer's stamp of who made it, and either on that side or on the reverse side, it'll have a model number. That's just like we were talking about with these staplers and things. Just look up that brand and the model number on eBay. And yeah, even some that have one of the blades is broken in half. It happened. People used them and the tip broke off. Some of those are still highly collectible, even in poor condition. So check out the pocket knives. Last couple of things, watches. Pocket watch that you had, that you just threw it in there because the battery ran out and you're like, I'm going to get another battery. Well, 15 years has passed. I don't think you're getting that battery. It's like the guy who has the car in his garage that is going to work on it. And no, you're not. You're going to go sell those parts.
Have you been looking through some of my drawers, Matt?
Hey, listen. Okay, so full disclosure, tell everyone what you said to me right before we got on about the watch.
I have a watch that I love this watch. In fact, I'm going to try to salvage this watch. But it's a Garmin watch, so it's one of the sports watches that I think I paid like $400 for it. And the back of it, where the little, you can't really see it probably, but the back of it, there's these little, where the prongs go in for the band, it cracked off. So the band can't stay on anymore. So basically, this fully functioning, awesome $400 watch is in a sense ostensibly worthless.
Is that like we can talk about it. Is that like a super glue situation? Could super glue hold that in place?
No, because the part was so small that I don't even know where it fell off. It broke off one day. I didn't know what had happened. And then when I went to put it back on, I was like, ah. So I might try to find the back part to replace it. But
is it because, much like how large your fingers are, that your wrists are gargantuan as well? Is that part of the problem?
That is true. They are.
Right, well,
that could be. I do have to buy the longest band, and it barely fits.
In all seriousness, though, like all jokes aside, being really tall or just a big person, which you're just born that way, like you have it can be very frustrating at times with, like, you got to get on a plane and you're in the middle seat, or you got to get in this car. This car was not made for me. It can be aggravating or risks.
Let me tell you,
like
buddy,
if you,
I live that. That's my life. So yes, I definitely know that. Like
I
buy a car,
I'm empathizing with you. Is what
I
I'm trying to say.
appreciate that, Matt. I appreciate that. All right, so watches are a good thing.
Watches,
I'm gonna
pocket
try
watches.
to figure out.
We've talked about those, and even these old. Generally speaking, quartz watches, meaning watches that usually use a battery, are not among the most collected of watch types out there. However, there are some collectible, like there's a brand called Swatch, SWATCH, that sell a lot of quartz watches that are still quite collectible. Even in used condition, rough condition, you can still sell those for $100, $150.
Super popular back in the 90s. Super popular.
They were, yep. And I think that they're made, what's the brand? I mean, they're owned by another more known brand, and I can't think of what it is. But but if you have ones that are hand wind or automatics, so automatic watches are ones when you walk around and just the kinetic activity of your movement is what keeps them going. Wind up ones are where, as the description suggests, you have to wind them. You set the time, you wind them up, and then they should last you the day. And then you just wind them the next day. And that's great because they don't take batteries. Brands, obvious, like well-known brands, Elgin brands, Waltham, a lot of these that made pocket watches and things too can have really great values. So, and again, they can also be made of gold or silver. Look in the back, underneath of, like, turn it around, what would it be facing your wrist? And usually they'll say things like 14 karat gold, or it'll say 10K RGP. That means that 1/20th of the metal has a rolled gold plating that is 10 karat pure gold. So people will buy those and just scrap the watch, and then they'll scrap the metal, and they'll make money off the metal. So has value. And then lastly, don't neglect pieces of jewelry. So you have a necklace that got really twisted up in your jewelry, in the wife's jewelry thing. And she brought it in and asked her husband or someone else, maybe she was going to do it. She was going to untwist it. Well, like things happen. Kids are coming in. You got to take them to soccer practice, whatever. It ends up in the junk drawer. Or you lost one of your earrings, didn't you? You don't know where it is. You loved those earrings, doggone it. And they were pretty unique. So you're like, in case I find it, I'm going to keep this one. Or maybe I'll try to find another one. Years later, you vaguely remember those earrings. You still got one in there, but it's made out of silver or it's made out of gold. Maybe it has a diamond in it or a sapphire. Don't pitch that just because you don't have the matching one. That by itself, someone might want to buy it for the gemstone. They'll take the gemstone. Somebody might want it for the gold. Maybe they're you 20 years ago and they have the same pair of earrings and they lost one. Mm-hmm. They're delighted to find that you were willing to put this one on there so they can buy. So little pieces of jewelry, gold and silver, I hear all the time, I just threw that away because it was broken. You just threw away $200. You flushed $200 down the tube because it was made of $200 worth of gold. And you didn't know. So take a look. Almost always, those things are stamped. Again, you need a tiny magnifying glass. You can look and see. But even if it's made out of silver or gold, maybe even just put a bunch of that stuff that's broken or bent together and sell it in one lot, because there's all kinds of reasons why a person might want to buy that, from scrapping it to doing craft work with it to harvesting the gemstones for other jewelry that they make, and the list continues. So I did, what do we got? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8 to 10 types of things in the junk drawer. Shoot, some of you out there might have hundreds of dollars just sitting. Just imagine you opening that junk drawer and there's hundreds of cash just sitting in there.
Right.
It could be. It could be.
A little bit of work and you get yourself some money for sure.
Exactly.
All right, Matt, this is a show about what we sold. We've run long, so we're going to go through this.
I thought it was a show about how to buy firearms and
that too.
Drink and produce alcohol for yourself
and getting
at home.
Impaled by junk trucks.
Well,
all right. What did you sell this week? Did you sell anything this week? It's a little slow, but did you sell anything?
Some things.
Nice.
I could die and things would still sell before someone shut down my store.
That's true.
Because I've got so many things up there. But
I would take it over.
Yeah, you would. I need to tell Flo when she gets off work at the bowling alley tonight. I'll say, hey, Brandon's the guy. If anything happens to me, just call him up. So one thing I sold is this necklace, and this doesn't belong to me. This is a consignment item. It is, I don't know how you would describe it. It's not
like a
beads.
snake.
It almost looks like a snake, but it's a certain type of style of necklace. And the thing that's unique about it is, A, it's older. It's probably from the 70s, and it is made entirely of sterling silver. It would be what you would call a Southwest style. I think it was made by more of an independent artist, an artist jeweler. It's not a mass-produced piece. And this sold, I had it on for probably a month and a half. I had one person who was super interested in it, but just wouldn't pay the price that I wanted and kept being like, hey, are you going to do this? And to be honest, if it had belonged to me, I would have sold it a long time ago. I would have got the money. But this belongs to somebody else, and I don't want to sell this under what I know its value is at, because I want to get them the best price. And so I even told them, full disclosure, I'm selling this for somebody. I would have more wiggle room if it didn't belong to someone else. This is what it is. And they've come back to me a couple times, hey, are you still ready to make that deal? Yeah, it's still doesn't belong to me, so it hasn't changed. and yesterday I kind of had that same thing, and you know what? It was like that person decided, all right, I put in the time, but I do really want this. So they bought it. It sold for $130.
Wow.
This probably weighs about 35 to 40 grams. So if you were just buying it for the silver, they would have not paid more than $25 to $28 probably for it. But because this is more of an artist piece, it's Southwest, I got the price. And listen, I won on that because I held out. I knew what the value was. I wasn't willing to take less. And I would have loved to got the money sooner, but hopefully the person I'm selling for will be happy that I...
Right.
It is a win-win. The higher things sell for, the more money I make and the more money they make. And so I like working it out because I'm incentivized to do my best to make the most money for them. Another thing that sold just yesterday was, and I've got them all in this bag. I pulled one out to show what look like a bunch of kind of white rocks are actually rough opals. And so I'm going to put it up kind of close. I don't know if you'll be able to see. If I kind of get close and kind of turn, you might be able to see the faintest color splashes with reds and blues and purples. But these are all natural Australian opal, rough specimens, you would call them. And even one in here, someone had been working on them. These are like preforms that we'd call preforms. So they've already grinded off the hard exterior to get the general color in there, and then they glue them on these little dowel rods. And in case you didn't know how gemstones were cut or made, they aren't really cut. That's almost a misnomer. They are grinded down with finer and finer plates that have diamond chips, diamond dust on them at varying grades, almost like sandpaper, and they just scrape it. And that's how these are made. And so here's one that someone was working on, and it looks really good. It's got some really cool color. But all that to say, I had this up for about $200 and some dollars to begin with. I ended up lowering it down to about $175. So this sold for $175. Sounds like a lot of money, but if a person's willing to put in the work and stick these in jewelry, they're going to make really good money off of this. And so they're going to be happy to get this. This is good quality stuff.
Are you selling that for somebody else as well?
No, that actually belongs to me. That was something that I purchased from a large lot of rock and minerals. And so most of them were just rough specimens, but a few of them in there were things that someone who does some jewelry work had already worked on. The last two things, this right here also, a piece that belongs to someone I'm selling for locally. And what you're looking at is probably about a 8-inch tall and 5-inch wide framed picture. And inside is a hand-painted portrait picture of an Asian woman with a very ornately and brightly colored outfit on. And you can't tell from the picture here that I'm showing this to you, but this is very thin white rice paper. So this is a piece that was made in, I honestly can't remember if it's Japanese or Chinese, and I apologize. I think that it's Chinese. And I think that this was made as a Chinese export piece. So when there was kind of this period of time in the early 90s when people were getting really interested in Oriental design and Oriental items and things, the Chinese people realized and said, we need to start producing a bunch of this stuff. Usually it was not as good a quality because they were making it faster. They weren't using as good of materials, but they were pumping this stuff out specifically to export to the United States and other countries in Europe. This is what would be called a pith painting, P-I-T-H. Why is it called that? I don't know the history on it, and you probably don't care either, but if you look up pith, P-I-T-H, you're going to see a lot similar to this. They were a lot more available than I would have thought, but it just goes to show how many of these were produced because a lot of them are still in existence. But this sold, not for a lot, it sold for about $70. That's okay. I would have loved to have been it to be more, but I'm not surprised given how many were available, right? So when you want to sell something you have, when there's a lot of others available, you either sit on it a long time or you price it under what most of them are selling for so that people want to buy yours and not someone else's. And that's exactly what I did. The last one here is a fun thing. Excuse me. A fun thing. This is mine. It is a little ring. Let's see if I can pop this up here. It's a vintage ring. It's an Art Deco design ring. It features white gold on most of it, but then the bezel that holds the stone in the center is yellow gold. It's more, almost like a, I don't know, what would you call that shape? I don't know. It's kind of a...
It's like an eye almost looks like.
Yeah, it's like if your eye, if what your eye shape looks like to the side, turn that vertically, and that's what it looks like. But what it features is a bunch of small diamonds, and the center stone is, I wonder if it says on here, I can't remember this. It's about a 1.4 carat natural ruby. Or not a ruby, sorry, a sapphire, a Ceylon sapphire. So it's like a mid to light color blue.
It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful ring, and sapphires that are a carat or more that either are untreated or only have heat treatment can sell for just crazy amounts of money, especially if they're set in jewelry already that's nice. Now, the thing about this is I bought this on auction on eBay. I almost never buy things on auction. I just don't want to wait around. I got too much to do. I'm not following this. It's like if I want it, I want it. So I follow this on auction, and I was surprised to wake up one morning to see that I was the winning bid. I paid $332 for this, and I was pretty happy with that. The reason I believe that it sold so little is that there are a lot of scrapes and abrasions on the top of this sapphire, which is odd. I don't see this a lot because sapphires are hard stones. They're among the hardest gemstone out there. Diamonds are a 10 out of 10 on the hardness scale. Sapphires and rubies are a 9. So they're among the hardest stones you can find on the planet. So they don't they don't crack, they don't scrape very easily, which is nice if you're wearing it and you're touching on things. This one's heavily scraped. My guess is somebody's going to pull the stone out and reshape it to make it nicer. But I sold it yesterday. Buy it now. I had it up for, or sorry, no, it wasn't buying it. It was an auction. So it took me a week to sell. I bought it. They gave it to me. I put it immediately on, and it sold in 7 days for $720.
Wow.
So I
How much you
bought
pay
this
for
on.
it?
I paid $332 on eBay. A week later, I turned around and sold it on eBay, on auction again, for $772.
Holy
$720. Now, why was I able to do that? Well, therein lies one of the things about auctions, is that if a person has an auction that ends at a really weird time, like in the middle of the night, how many people are up watching that, waiting to bid? Now, they put in their best bid, they go to bed. And so you don't have, as a seller, the advantage of a bidding war. People are like, I want it. You know, they just put in their bids, and then whoever gets it, gets it. Well, I just happened to get it. I knew that this had more of a value. I took better pictures than the pictures the person I bought it from took. I put more effort into describing it. The other thing is that it comes with, it's already been certified with a gemological report that it's somebody who's an independent, they have verified. And also, this isn't going directly to the buyer. It's actually going to a third-party authenticator that eBay contracts with. So I'm not shipping this to the buyer. I'm shipping this to a third party who is just another step to say, yes, this is in fact what the seller is claiming that it is. And I like that because it makes the buyer feel good. Also, if the buyer gets it and says, this isn't even a real sapphire, they can't do that. They can't scam me in that way because their third party has already authenticated it. So that's going out today. I felt good about that. I'm getting a little bit more into this because I know jewelry so well. I've discovered, this is something I'm doing this week, and I'll just drop this little tidbit. I'm buying some of these older rings from the Victorian and Georgian era that have diamonds or sapphires and also feature enamel paint. So a lot of these back in the day would have not just the metal and the stone, but they would have some sort of design either etched into it or painted. A lot of times it's black or blue or red. And I'm focusing on the black, but I'm buying some of these at a little bit of lower value because I'm finding ones intentionally that are heavily worn and a lot of the enamel has worn off. Then I'm getting it and I'm going out and I'm buying black fingernail polish and mixing it with the clear fingernail polish. It's like a cover coat that's hard. I'm mixing that so you have both the color that you need and also you have that durability. And then I'm getting out my magnifying glasses and I am painting, I'm repainting, I'm refurbishing these so that when I go back on, in some cases I'll be able to sell these for twice as much as I bought them for, simply because I went down to CVS and I paid $8 for a couple of things of fingernail polish, and I spent 15 minutes to do the work. That's just an example of ways you can sometimes repair or refurbish things, and now they have immediately more value. If I do this, I've got one coming in a week. I'll try to give an update on, did this actually pan out the way that I thought? But that's something I'm doing this week. I'm always into different stuff,
All right. Well, listen, this show went so long. We talked about such silliness that I might do a two-parter because it's
excellent.
And that we've never done a two-parter, but I kind of there's so much information in this show that I don't want to get missed.
Yeah.
And even at the end, I mean, you just keep bringing it and bringing it, and so we're trying to give the people what they want, but I don't want to give them too much of what they want.
For sure.
Right up front. Any last words for the VW bug driving?
I mean, it may be that I just had a little bit too much of my homegrown hooch before the episode, and I'm just very long-winded today. No, that didn't happen. I would say, guys, go over to in all seriousness, go to your junk drawer. There's stuff in there that, let's be honest, you don't use it. It's broken, it's damaged. It'll feel nice to clean it out, and this is a really good entry point to selling, because there's no cost involved to you. You don't have to go out and wonder if you got something, wonder if you spent too much on it. None of that. You can deal with that later. Get some good experiences, sell some things, learn the process, then you're going to be in a good position to start to go out and do it elsewhere.
All right. Well, listen, whether you're listening to part 1 or part 2, remember to follow, like, and subscribe. It's super helpful to us. We really appreciate everybody. Hopefully you picked up something that you can make a little moolah from. Moolah being cashola from this week. Otherwise, that is all the time we have. We'll be back with a brand new show or part 2, depending on when you listen to this, next week. And so we hope everybody has a great week. We'll talk with you soon.